Right, I think we're ready to go. It's 7:01 or 2, and every time I'm ready early, the Zoom drops out. Welcome everyone to the weekly Tuesday Night Live. I'm Jacqui Lewis. I'm the clinical nutritionist for BN Multi, and every Tuesday we meet on the page to discuss issues related to weight loss surgery. And tonight is a week of discussing hair loss, and we've got a few questions that have come up in the group regarding hair loss and a few other things. So each week we meet here at 7 o'clock Brisbane time, and so during the week you have a few opportunities within our BN Bariatric group to post your questions regarding your journey so far. Anything that you'd like to know from a nutritional and exercise, food ideas, whatever's happening, weird and wonderful bodily responses to weight loss surgery, which there are many, and everyone's individual. So yeah, welcome and thanks for joining us. And tonight we're going to discuss hair loss. Each month we've got a challenge, and every week we have a different topic. So this month's challenge is cutting out sugar from our diet as much as possible. And we've been discussing that over the last few weeks. And if you're here and you are on the sugar challenge, post in the group how you're in the chat here, how you're feeling about all of that and what you're noticing. And it's probably nearly 3 weeks in, so things do start to change. I'm just trying to minimize this little screen and find my correct screen. And of course, it's not here. So what a week. Brisbane, we're still wearing masks. We're nearly done, which is good. And Friday will be the end of mask wearing, which will be very good. And going to the gym is not much fun wearing a mask, I must say. I went this afternoon, and it's definitely makes things pretty tricky. However, we are not to underestimate how lucky we are in Australia at the moment. And here's the first question. There's a few questions that are related to hair loss, and I'll talk about hair loss next, but I'll answer your questions first. Catherine was asking, is it possible to stretch your stomach? I've had bypass on December the 1st, and I'm not sure how much I'm supposed to be able to eat at each meal. I'm not eating massive amounts, but for example, yesterday I went out for breakfast and had 2 poached eggs and a slice of sourdough toast. Is this normal? I just want to be doing the right thing. Yeah, you did get the answer in the group around how individual it is. There are different people will be able to fit different amounts of food in. Yes, you can stretch your stomach. And genetically, some people have more stretch in their tissues in their stomach than others. So it's something to be aware of, that it can happen. And that's why the bariatric portions are stipulated that you need to follow after surgery. So it's kind of regardless of what you can fit in, it's what is a portion size, and eating to the portion jurisdiction. So I would suggest, if you feel that you might be eating too much, my question is, I wonder who's helping you to get through the journey from a dietetics perspective, because that's where you should be getting your suggested portions from, and your ideas on what's normal for you, and have a sounding board for chatting about how your meals are tracking and that sort of thing. The other thing to do, I did a podcast with the absolute queen of bariatric portioning, Amanda Clark, and you'll find the podcast on the Australian Weight Loss Surgery podcast website. It's in the corner there, AWLS podcast. Look for the one I did with Amanda Clark, because she talks a lot about portion control and why it's important and what it comprises of. So it's a really handy guide. Then I would suggest using the the BN portion plate and bowl for your meals so that you can eyeball a healthy bariatric size portion and understand what it comprises of. So it's divided into protein, your carbohydrates, a little bit of room for some healthy fats as well. And repeating that process each meal gives you a better understanding of not so much what you can fit in. And I think a lot of people manage their portions on what they can fit in. But if those portions start to creep up, so will the space in your tummy, and your appetite will meet that at the same time. So it's not so much what you ate, it's was it a bariatric portion or not? Did it contain 50% protein? Did you have any veggies? That sort of stuff. So it's looking at the structure of your meal as well as the size, and not just basing on, how you feel about fitting it in. So I hope that's helpful. Pop onto the podcast website. There's a whole lot of, I've got quite a few of the top bariatric dietitians that I've spoken with over time. And Meryl Bonn is another one who's a really good one to listen to. She's been in the game for many, many years as well and has some really interesting ways at looking things. And one of the things that stood out for me with Meryl's conversation was she mentioned that people come to her and talk about how they're eating, different foods and how things feel and that sort of stuff. And she said people complain about foods that don't sit well, or they sit heavy, or they feel full. And so they avoid those foods. And when you look at it in a different way, the idea is to keep your tummy full for as long as you can. So foods that do sit in the tummy and slowly digest, as far as protein and healthy fats go, that's what you're looking for. So sometimes it is looking at the foods that you may have kind of put in the that doesn't feel right basket, but looking at, are they the foods that actually keep you satisfied for longer and keep the tummy or the pouch full for longer? And the end game is to keep that feeling of satisfaction. And the way to do that is to always put your protein in first. And not only does that then hit your stomach first and stay there and keep the tummy full, because the carbohydrates, if they go in first, they will go straight through to the small intestine and leave the pouch empty pretty quickly. Whereas protein is digested in the stomach. I think I say this most weeks, so I'm sorry if I'm boring you. And so there's a reason that we say always protein and always protein first. And that is also a biochemical reaction to the protein that goes in. It sends a whole lot of messages to the body as far as what it needs to do with insulin. And that's another key, which I'll go into later on. So in answer to your question, it's not, again, about what you can fit in there. It's about what is a serving and do I understand what the servings are. And it doesn't sound like someone's telling you this, and there should be guidelines given to you when you have your surgery. So if you have a dietitian or your team and you're feeling a bit lost and not sure, because your surgery wasn't that long ago, it's a really important time that you get that input and support. So reach out if you don't have any. And it's great that you're asking the questions in the group. So keep doing that. We're happy to help you as well. Thanks. Sharon is talking about, I'm really struggling. I feel like I've failed already. I've only lost 10 kilos post-op in 7 weeks. So I wish I had a group here in front of me who I could say, put your hand up if you felt really that you were still struggling at 7 weeks. And I think most people would put their hand up. I weigh myself at the end of the week. I've also lost 10 pre-op, so it's 20 kilos altogether. I presumed the weight would come off quicker in the first few months. I'm extremely hard on myself, which we all gleaned from what you just said. 20 kilos, that's not enough. I'm extremely hard on myself. I need both knees replaced, but I'm still able to use some gym equipment. Do you think that would help? I have no idea what to eat. I just feel lost. This is common. And if you are feeling lost, there's a whole lot of reasons there that you're feeling lost. This is the time to look for support, particularly if there is underlying anxiety or things that you know about yourself that at a time like this must be running themselves pretty wild. and it is a time where you're learning a lot and you're not sure what's right or wrong, and a whole lot of stuff that you're taking in. And then you've got social media where you're reading about what's normal, and then you've got, you know, all different sorts of bombardment of information. So it does sound like it would be great if you could get some solid input. Please don't feel like you failed already. It's just so early in the game, and this is a lifelong process. So yes, it will be, we call it rapid weight loss, but certainly in this part of your journey, you're still recovering. And that's also the time to take it easy on yourself. Listen to what your guidelines are as far as what you should be eating. And if you're ticking the boxes off for what you've been told to do, you'll see that the results will come. So it is a head game, a lot of it. And it is a lot about if you are feeling totally lost and, you know, you're not sleeping because you're anxious about the whole thing, or you're just not really managing, it's definitely reach out to either your dietitian or your doctor, or if you've got a counsellor, someone like that who can help you. And if you don't have those sorts of things in place and you'd like some direction, you can always contact support@bnmulti.com, and we have contact with all the dietitians and you know, the different psychologists who can help with bariatric patients and that sort of stuff as well. So please do reach out, and please don't be hard on yourself. It's you've lost 20 kilograms, and I'm sure leading up to surgery that was something that you had a dream about. So you will find that it is a slower process. If you're able to use the gym equipment, also getting some advice on what activity you could be doing to best support your end goal as well. And I think a lot of us go, oh, I need to do this with my food and I need to do this with my exercise, and we kind of throw all sorts of things in. But to actually get someone to write you a proper plan based on your personal, you know, your needs and your goals, they can work out a great program that will be effective instead of taking all the guesswork and trying to work it out. You know, that's why people study these different modalities, to help people and to shortcut your results as well. So please reach out if you need to, and we can help direct you to someone to support you. And also keep asking questions in the group. I know it's not a everyday answer, but a lot of the people in the group are really supportive. Well, everybody is. I've never seen anyone who hasn't been supportive. So do ask more questions, and you can then you'll hear from people who've been there and done it as well, which I think is also quite, you know, it will quell some of your fears about feeling like you know, not getting to where you wanted to in 7 weeks. And have a think about how long it took you to get to the point where you needed bariatric surgery. It was a journey. So, and it was a lot of a compilation of different factors that lead us to that point. And to unwind all of that also is something that does take time, and I don't think we can rush it. So yeah, just take a breath, and also make sure you're taking your BN multi, because a lot of these anxiety and depression and feelings of angst after surgery can also be nutritional deficiency. So you've just been through surgery, your body's busy recovering and it needs lots of nutrients to heal. You've seen how much food you can fit in. It's not very much. So there's always going to be a shortfall of your nutrition, and the main players are the B group and your iron. And if there's a ramping up in your anxiety, your depression and sleeplessness and that sort of stuff, it can often just be as simple as a nutritional fix. So your supplements and your specific supplements for bariatric patients are the key, and they're key for your recovery, but they're also key for your mental health. And all the B group that are in the BN multi, the higher doses of the B12 and the activated folate and all that sort of stuff, link into making healthy neurotransmitters, which regulate your mood. So if there's a history of anxiety or depression and then there's a deficiency in B group, it's just going to run rampant as well. So also consider that. And also consider the connection between the gut and the brain and the emotional state as well. And it's something to Google up and have a look at, because there's huge links to the gut and the brain and the mood regulation as well. So it's a time where things are quite often in flux. And I will add one more thing. It's a lot of your hormonal system is rejigging itself, and particularly for women who are losing weight rapidly. There's a lot of estrogen on board, and that can make us pretty wild and woolly and a little bit emotional. So yeah, consider there's a whole lot going on, and that stabbing in the dark and trying to find out what it is sometimes not as helpful as getting, you know, a good input. Thank you. Sherelle is asking a question. Oh, and yeah, this is right on. I'll actually leave Sherelle's question until last because it's on the topic that we're talking about tonight, which is hair loss. Does anyone have any tips for getting, Erin's asking, does anyone have any tips for getting me back on track? I was sleeved in December 19 and I lost 36 kilos with about 10 to 15 to go, but I seem to be able to drink and eat a lot now, so my weight loss has stalled for 7 months. Has my tummy stretched? And there's a word in here that I can't say on air. And have I messed this up, or what's happening? So something to think about would be, have your habits changed? You've done excellent in the first portion after your surgery and lost 36 kilos. So often I'll ask if there's a stall or there's a regain, what was happening when things were going well? What were you doing? And now that they're not going so well, what are you not doing anymore? Just one moment. Come on. My dogs. And what has changed? What are you not doing that you used to be doing, or what are you doing now that you weren't doing when things were going really well? And have a really honest stock take of, you know, food, exercise, supplementation, that sort of thing. If your portions have increased, it's likely two things have either happened. Yes, you can put too much food in and stretch the pouch, or you're putting in carbs and there's more room because they're going straight through. They'll help you with weight regain or stall, and they will mean that you're eating more than you could before. So I would often say, people will often say, I'll just go back to shakes, and I don't recommend that, but go back to when you started solid foods with the same commitment that you had, and have a look at whether it's a match of what you're doing at the moment. So I can't tell you whether your tummy's stretched or not. That's up to your team to investigate. But certainly go back to making sure you're putting your protein in first, and you've got a bariatric plate and bowl. And and even I get people to do like a diet recall for a week and write down everything you eat and when, and whether you made it or you bought it, or where you were when you ate it. Were you in the car? Were you on the go in between meetings? Were you sitting down with, you know, candlelight and ambient music playing? So it's working out also your state of mind around food and how mindful you're being around your eating and your exercising as well. There's a great book on our website which is called Get Back on Track After Weight Loss Surgery, and it covers this kind of thing. Amber Kay wrote it, and I've also done a podcast with her. She's got a few different programs that are really targeted for bariatric patients and has huge success in our community with changing mindset. So often when we get to this point where we've lost 36 kilos and we're starting to feel really good, we're not used to winning. So sometimes we go, oh, wait a sec, I'm not used to this success. And sometimes we'll sabotage it, and we don't go, oh, I'm going to sabotage it. It's not a conscious decision, but it's this, we get comfortable and we lose our sight of our long-term goal. So I recommend that book. That will have some great techniques and different ways of thinking about things that will kind of get you back on track. That's why it's called the book. So it's on the website, on the bnmulti.com website, and it's called Get Back on Track After Weight Loss Surgery. And often it's that you're about a year out. It's between a year and 2 years that hunger will start to return And that's when things can go a bit wobbly. So it's looking at when that does start to happen, what are we going to do? And what we're going to do is use these tools that we should have been using all along. So it just becomes something that you really have to focus on. Whereas in the first year or so, where hunger's not driving your food needs as much, it just gets a bit harder to concentrate on keeping those portion sizes under control and not kind of grazing and those unhelpful habits. So Erin, I hope that was helpful. Please let us know again if we can be of any more help. So we're going to go on to hair loss, and we hear a lot about hair loss for patients who are getting ready for surgery. Some of them bring us in a flap, and that's what they've heard, is that I might lose my hair and what can I do about it? Some will, and it's a random thing in a lot of ways. Some people experience handfuls and handfuls of hair loss. Some people have very little. Some people have it for a period of time and then it'll abate. And some people will find that it happens down the track. So there's a whole lot of different things at work there. And there's a great research article that I'll post in the group at the end of the session that the Bariatric Times did into hair loss after weight loss surgery. And we talk about why it happens in the first place. So if it's just after surgery, it can be related to the shock of what your body's going through. And I think that shouldn't be underestimated. And there's a lot that happens from it's called metabolic surgery for a reason, because it's doing things to your metabolism and the metabolic pathways in the body. So if you can think about what that means, it's like rewiring a whole computer network to talk to a different server, perhaps, or it's like, rewiring something totally. So that's going to take time and effort and energy. And sometimes that means that we don't have time to maintain the hair part of the biochemical process. So that gets put on hold. And so after surgery, the first 6 months, there can be some hair loss expected. And unfortunately, it's just something that's part of the process, but should start to abate at that 6 months range, basically. If hair loss starts to prevail or it is prevailing after 6 months, or it starts after 6 months, it's generally a nutritional implication. And this is where we're going to talk about particular or specific bariatric multivitamins and what their role is comparative to a standard multivitamin off the supermarket shelf. So a lot of us go through the weight loss surgery journey, or we start the process and we're told we need to take a multi, and then we kind of form this terminology around things in different groups. And there is conversation about, are you taking your multi, which kind of can be a bit ambiguous, and it could lead people to think that any multivitamin will do the job. So it's not the case in a huge part of the population, and the surgery does interfere with the absorption of certain nutrients. And so the bariatric range of multivitamins like BN Multi have been designed based on this research. So there was a paper that was written, it's about 40 pages long, and it's the guidelines as far as nutritional deficiency after weight loss surgery. And it was found that B12, calcium, iron, and zinc to a certain extent are affected by weight loss surgery, and forevermore your absorption of those nutrients is inhibited to a certain extent, or it is not inhibited, it is reduced. So we call that malabsorptive. So on top of not eating very much, you've also got this inability to use certain nutrients that even if they come into the body, it's not a great uptake. So the BN range are based on that research, and they have, you'll notice our multivitamins have 500 micrograms of B12 in them. So if you pick up a multi off the supermarket shelf, you'll find that has 3 micrograms in it, or maybe 35 if you're very lucky, because the standard everyday need of a person who hasn't had surgery is only about 3. And it's something that we are able to take most of that in. Your absorption is now 1%. So to get even a maximum of 5 micrograms, you need 500 going in to make sure you're meeting your needs and maintaining your health in your body. And this is where it comes into hair loss, is that the key nutrients that are involved in hair loss are B12, iron, zinc, copper, essential fatty acids, and protein. So when you look at a patient who's had weight loss surgery, every single nutrient that's been affected by the mechanics of the operation are what is key in making your hair. That's hard work. So making sure that your diet is in good nick and you're taking your multivitamins, and it's a bariatric multivitamin, will certainly help you with maintaining the physicality of your body. And I talk about hair loss as a, I talk about hair as a thing that's, the body looks at it as, oh, it's nice to have hair and it's nice to have nails, but there are other things that, so hair, I've just said, is reliant on B12, iron, zinc and copper, but also those nutrients are used for other things. So B12 is also used to make your brain work well and to keep your nervous system functioning. So when the chips are down, if there's not much B12 around, the body will prioritize where that goes. So it's not going to go, oh, well, you can have some hair and don't worry about my brain and my nervous system, don't worry about that. It's going to prioritize it and shuttle that B12, if it's there, to be used to work, to make your brain work and to keep your nervous system in check. Because B12 deficiency long term can lead to symptoms similar to multiple sclerosis, so loss of feeling in pins and needles and numbness and that sort of thing, because the nervous system just can't relay the messages anymore. So long story short, if your hair and nails aren't looking beautiful, there's something going on from a nutritional perspective. And the way to find out what that is through your regular blood check. So every 6 months, it's making sure you're checking your bloods to see how things are tracking, and also making sure they're not tracking just in the lower end of the normal range, that they're actually looking quite good. And a lot of the time, well, not a lot of the time, but sometimes we get told that things are good because they're not out of range. But when they're out of range, there's a problem. And if they're just about out of range, there's almost a problem. And I don't think we want that either. We want to be more proactive in maintaining our health than going, whoop, that's right down the bottom of the scale now, we better do something. Why don't we just maintain it? And essentially, this is what your multivitamins are for, is every day you put in, it's like a money bank. Every day you're putting in $4. If it's 2 multivitamins and they're $2 coins, you're putting in $4 into the money bank, so that if something happens, you've got money there. And it's the same thing with your health, is you put something in on a regular basis to keep it ticking along and ensuring that it works well. So it's an insurance policy in some regards, to make sure that you are protecting your health, and that we're not just waiting for hair to fall out or nails to go crazy and splitting and being all rigid and having white spots in them, because that's also a sign of deficiency as well. So long story short, if hair loss is prevailing after 6 months, it's time to have a look at the bloods and see what's going on. And in some cases, if hair loss is prevailing, it can be linked to thyroid. So also checking thyroid function is a key. But to run a big circle around that, the thyroid relies on iron. And when iron is low, the thyroid's not very happy. So there's no oxygen. And that's what iron's job is to transport oxygen around the system. And it helps the thyroid to function. When your thyroid is healthy, your weight loss will be fantastic. And when your iron is at a healthy level, also will help your weight loss. And iron deficiency in the bariatric community prevails at a 48% of patients are deficient within the first year after their operation. So they're also deficient in iron. Their hair may be affected, but not only that, their weight loss will be slower than it could be. So it's all this big biochemical story that we need to have all our nutritional ducks in a row. If you're being vigilant, you're taking your multivitamin twice a day, you're meeting your protein needs, you're taking your 2 tablespoons of healthy fats, and everything else is in a row, I would look at absorption from that point of view, because sometimes it can mean that you're putting everything in but the body's not taking it on. So looking at gut health, how much stomach acid do you have to process those nutrients? In some cases, a probiotic will actually help the iron absorption and a few other nutrients, and just having a good healthy gut will help with nutrient absorption overall, and will sustain your immunity and your vitality. So looking at your journey, always, if you're questioning, you know, if your hair's not looking healthy or it's falling out, there's alarm bells should be ringing, and go through your bloods with a fine tooth comb. The other thing I was just reading in Sherelle's question is, Sherelle says she's had a gastric bypass 2.5 years ago and has had continuous hair loss. Takes 2 multivitamins, some iron, some B12, some cetalapram, some somac, and seretide daily. The only thing I can think. Then she says, my nutrition is pretty good. However, I've gained 7K through making poor choices and my negative self-talk. So the first part of the sentence is my nutrition is good. And the second part is, but I'm gaining weight. So I wonder if we need to have a look at what we think our good is at the moment and just reviewing that. Making better choices that have more nutritional value. And the other thing I would look at is, when are you taking all of these things? Because the somac will block absorption of a lot of these nutrients that you need. So the reflux medications block iron and calcium absorption, and they mess up your gut flora. So your absorption of nutrients is not as good, particularly if you're taking them together. It almost negates them. And I don't have the research on how much you lose, but it definitely is an iron blocker and a calcium blocker. So it's looking at how to structure, firstly looking at, do we definitely need the reflux meds, and having your medication reviewed on a regular basis to make sure that you're definitely taking it because you need it. Looking at why reflux exists. Is it mechanical? Is it part of the process of bariatric surgery, or is it due to a diet high in processed foods and poor gut flora and low stomach acid? And is that the cycle we're in? So there's a whole lot of things, but if you're taking the multis and your B12 and your iron, and then you take your somac, I don't know how much of that is being absorbed. So it'd be looking at seretide too. That's an asthma med, and often that will have, I think that's to do with folate, and it also will mess up microbiome because it kills all the bacteria on the way in. So it's looking at ways to repopulate if you have to do that on a regular basis, and it's not something you can choose to not take. But certainly looking at how you spread out your supplements throughout the day, if you're mixing it with medication, and somebody should be guiding you with that to let you know. The other thing that blocks iron absorption is caffeine. So coffee, tea, chocolate, anything with caffeine in it, it needs to be separated by 2 hours. So if there's anything you have in your regime that's a clash, they need to be separated by a couple of hours. So, if you're taking somac and you know that it blocks calcium and you need a calcium supplement, you take them at either end of the day maybe. So looking at it that way. What else do I need to say about hair loss? I'll see if I can find you guys and see if there's any questions. I had it on my screen and it always changes. Oh, nice. Let me see, 14 comments here. I'll see what they are. Donna's asking, are the deficiencies more directed to gastric bypass as opposed to gastric sleeve? I would say that the main differences I see between deficiency in patients is that the bypass does have more far-reaching effects on the fat-soluble vitamins. And I'd have to revisit the current research on the differences in the malabsorption between gastric sleeve and bypass. But certainly the sleeve takes out so much of the fundus or the stomach that it's a massive, really absorbent tissue that we've just removed. So the opportunities, and the other thing it has in it is the receptors for absorbing certain nutrients. The key is that we've reduced stomach acid secretions or enzymatic activity, and the stomach acid is what calcium and iron rely on for absorption. The reason the B12 is affected is because the fundus, or the part of the stomach that they remove, houses a lot of this particular transport protein for B12, and that's called intrinsic factor. So intrinsic factor, when you eat food that has B12 in it, goes in and it gets released, and then intrinsic factor is like a lock, picks it up and helps to transport it. So when you don't have any intrinsic factor, B12 is not going anywhere. So that's why your absorption of B12 is heavily reduced, is because there's no intrinsic factor there. So now your body, as clever as it is, has to find another method of transporting that nutrient so that you can take it on and store it, because it has such important functions. So it uses another method, and we call that passive transport. So intrinsic factor is a protein that's, activates something and moves it, whereas passive transport is like almost like a osmosis effect. So the B12 has to be saturating that tissue to actually take any of it on. So that's why 500 micrograms of activated B12 will beat the crap out of anything off the supermarket shelf, and or any pregnancy multivitamin, or any something from A to Z. Do you want to start me? Just saying. I'm getting a bit cheeky. So Leanne's grateful for the timing. Yeah, that's a good, really appreciate the advice on the timing and taking supplements and medication. Always have a look at that, and also have a think, and I'll see if I can post it in the group. I have a site that I use that tells me about medication and its nutritional tax. So here's an example. The oral contraceptive pill burns up B group and folate. So someone who's taking the oral contraceptive pill will need to have a look at that. So antidepressant medication interacts with folate, and depression is caused by a lack of folate. So you've got a person who's low in folate to begin with in a lot of instances, which is causing imbalance in the neurotransmitters. So their needs are high, and then we put them on an antidepressant, which, yes, depletes more folate. And then we say, we want to stop the depression medication. And I feel so depressed. And it's like, well, pretty low in B group and folate. So I'm not saying this is always the case, but there's different interactions that medications have on different nutrients, and you need to be aware of that as well, so you know what if your needs are higher. Anyone under a lot of stress, under a lot of anxiety, under a lot of sleeplessness, that sort of stuff, they'll be chewing up different nutrients, and generally they're like B group and magnesium and that sort of thing. So it's interesting that we don't look at it as a picture. There we go. So Jacqui says, so if you're taking reflux tablet, does that mean you triple the dose on the multi and the iron? It doesn't necessarily, but if you can separate them as far apart as you can, and then it's really important that you check your bloods. The other thing is to really talk to your team about monitoring your medication as well, so that you know that some people just think you take somac because they haven't been told to stop it. And it's good to say, hey, I'm taking this because you told me to take it after surgery. Do I keep doing that? Because sometimes it just gets lost in the loop. And it's good to make sure that you're taking stuff that you should be or need, and not taking anything you don't as well. And also my blood, Sherelle, said, also my bloods are always on the low end of normal. Yeah, so there's something to work on. And think about this, is people who are having blood tests aren't always the healthiest people, because we're checking something. and we're worried about it, so we run a test. So these norms that we have sometimes are based on the population who've been tested for these nutrients, and often they're tested because we're looking for them because we suspect that they're low. So that's something to think about as well. But certainly if your blood tests are on the lower end of normal, always think that there's room to improve, and perhaps for a period of time you just increase, say it's vitamin D, you could take that alongside, get some advice on what the dose might be, always get advice on how much you need. But yeah, if something is showing up in the lower end, imagine how much better you could feel. And we're kind of, if we're not out of range, we're not falling off the perch, why would we worry about it then? But it's really important that you're in the, good part of the range. So I'm glad that's helped. And there are 20 comments here, and I can only see a few of them. Maybe it's the settings. So if you've got any more questions, just chuck them in the group, and I'll go through. Oh, I know, I've nearly forgot the winners. I'll go through the winners, and if I can't stop changing my computer around, I will be more efficient at that for sure. If you could see how many tabs I've got open from things I was looking at today. Anyway, I'll stop doing that one day. So, this is the part where I get to share the screen. So hang on. Every Tuesday in the group, we talk about Transformation Tuesday. And it's the opportunity for people to share their before and after pictures. God, I keep mucking this up. And now I've moved my Zoom screen down to my laptop, but I can't modify it because it's too big and it's in the way of showing you the of sharing my screen. I'm certainly a good nutritionist. I'm a sucky technician. Here we go. So I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to share the top screen. Great. And I'll just move this out of the way. Yeah, I think you can see that. So first winner of, it'll disappear in the background. This is new and invisible. This is our, I'll show you in the group. It's terrible on the camera. It's a great, it is fantastic measuring jug, and it's computerized. So it's a scale. It measures weight and milliliters, and it's on a stainless steel bowl that you just take out and wash, and then you just put the bowl back on the stand. It's not the best example. Put the bowl back on the stand when it's being washed, and I love it. It does liquid. It does put your meat in there and weigh it. So I've been banging on about portion control all night, and if you need 100 grams of everything, you just put it in there. 100 grams of veggies, 100 grams of meat, and there's your dinner. Don't eat it out of the bowl. Put it on a nice plate. So our winners this week, get a bowl, get a measuring jug. And the first one is Tennille Ann, 46.8 kilograms down in total, 34.2 since surgery in July last year. Impressive. I've actively been trying to lose weight for a good part of 15 years, going up and down like a yo-yo. Today I stand proud, losing just shy of 50 kg, and it blows my mind. The one thing though that I'm doing now that I tried when I was heavy is yoga, and I am loving it. The shapes I'm making with my body and the linking of my arms behind my back and through my legs. I'm still no professional, so I know the terms, but I'm killing it. So I don't know the terms, but I'm killing it. Oh yeah, there's lots of, they speak Indian in the yoga classes, and just keep going and you'll start to know, and then you think you're like a full-on yogi. It's amazing. So standing in this tree pose for a long period of time, just one of the things I can do now that I wasn't doing before. It's amazing. I'll show you the photos. Look, that's incredible. Looking very fit and well, so good on you. And so you'll be able to measure your meals out now. You're a lucky girl. Just my dog ate my last one. I was very sad about that. I don't know how she got it. And next, check this one out. Transformation Tuesday, all right. That's incredible too. And this is all doable. Obviously, people are doing it and we're showing these people every week. So this is Rose Ferrugia, 60 kg in 15 months. You've also won a jug. Still like to lose 15 more. My recent achievement was that I actually went swimming in the water twice, in the pool and at the beach. My weight has stopped me from doing a lot of activities, and I now realize how much my excess weight has stopped me. It's been many years since I went swimming. I also fit in my bath. Oh, look. Lost your wings in the process, but you're looking amazing. Well done. So you also win one of the measuring drugs. If you're a winner, send us an email, please, with your details, and put in the header, in the title of the email, put I win a prize because I changed my life. And the email address is support@bnmulti.com. Good work. And we did the live. We talked about hair loss. I'll post the research article in the group. And we've also got a great flyer on hair loss and and the recommended doses of nutrients, bariatric nutrients, that you would take for a period of time to help prevent that. So it's also about how much of the essential fats and that sort of stuff you need as well. God, I was going to say one more thing. No. And that's one thing I wanted to bring up is if you do fall into iron deficiency, realize that if you're supplementing to bring your levels back up into a really good range, it can take maybe 9 months. So if your levels of ferritin in your bloods are really low, now they're looking at iron infusion as a faster way to build iron in a bariatric patient, because the oral route of rebuilding everything can take some time. So that's where your BN is your insurance policy, because it will certainly maintain the amount of iron in the BN multis is geared to maintain your levels. So if there's anything going on, and particularly for women, because we lose iron every month, we have to really be putting something back in and not just relying on, you know, my diet and that sort of thing, because iron deficiency takes so long. It's every blood cell has a 120-day lifespan. So iron ups and B12 affect the way your blood cells form. So if that's happening, it takes 120 days of doing good things to then rebuild a little bit better blood cell. And then the next cycle, if you're still putting in all the good things, they'll be even better. So it's a building process because you're building new blood and it takes time. And again, that's where your regular blood tests come in, is to check on that and make sure it's going in the right direction. The type of iron we use in our supplements is the best for boosting your iron stores. There's different forms of iron that can be easier to take, but they're less effective in actually boosting your levels. So compliance is the key, and sometimes if you take them before you go to bed at night, that's when you'll find that you'll get a good benefit from that as well. I think I should take a breath. And so I'm going to head off and I'll see you all next week. Have a wonderful week.